All right, everybody, get ready, because today we're diving headfirst into Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind.
Yeah, by Yuval Noah Harari.
This book, let me tell you, it's packed with incredible ideas about, well, us, our ancestors.
It really makes you rethink everything you thought you knew about history.
Right. Like, what does it even mean to be sapiens? How did we get from, well, insignificant apes?
To the species that dominates the entire planet.
It's mind-blowing. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack today.
What's fascinating about Harari's approach is he doesn't just lay out a timeline of historical events.
He goes deeper than that.
He's asking those big, thought-provoking questions, the ones that really make you question those comfortable narratives we often tell ourselves about history and progress.
Yeah, like I was floored to learn that it was only 70,000 years ago.
Just 70,000 years ago.
That we were basically just another animal wandering around Africa.
It's true. It really puts things into perspective, doesn't it? When you think about the vastness of, well, everything.
70,000 years. It doesn't seem like that long ago when you really think about it.
Exactly. And that's what makes the story of Homo sapiens so remarkable.
It really is incredible.
To go from foraging for food to building these massive cities, venturing into space, I mean, it's astounding.
It really makes you wonder, how did we get from that, being just another species to shaping the very planet?
Well, Harari argues that this incredible journey, this whole thing, it hinges on a pivotal moment. He calls it the cognitive revolution.
The cognitive revolution.
Yeah, and it wasn't just about, evolving bigger brains or anything like that.
Right, it wasn't just about size.
It was a fundamental shift, a radical shift in our cognitive abilities, the way we think.
So, like, how we process information, how we communicate, everything changed.
Exactly. Basically, it's when sapiens developed the ability to think abstractly.
And use language. That's key.
Language is everything. It's what really sets us apart. This new way of thinking, this new way of communicating, it was our secret weapon.
Our superpower. And a vital part of this whole revolution, as Harari explains, was our ability to believe in these shared myths.
Shared myths, yeah.
These stories, these ideas, they might not exist in a physical sense.
Like you can't touch them.
Right, exactly. But they allowed us to cooperate in larger and larger numbers. It's like they created this blueprint for large-scale cooperation.
It's incredible when you think about it, the power of belief. I mean, look at religions.
Religions, nations, corporations even.
Exactly. They've all inspired incredible acts of collaboration, of sacrifice, all based on the shared belief in something.
It's like these stories, these myths, they transcended our individual lives. They connected us to something bigger than ourselves.
They gave us a sense of purpose, of belonging.
And it's fascinating to consider how these, well, almost ancient patterns of thought might still be shaping our world today.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about something like the standardization of time.
Time.
Yeah, it seems like such a basic concept now, right?
Sure, we take it for granted.
But it highlights how we create these invisible structures that underpin our lives. We've gone from relying on the sun to, atomic clocks, all in the pursuit of a unified experience of time.
Wow, that is wild when you really think about it. We don't even realize how much of our thinking is shaped by forces we don't even see.
But, Harari, he doesn't shy away from the not-so-great parts of our history either.
He doesn't.
Like, he really challenges those traditional, comfortable narratives we have about certain things, like the agricultural revolution.
Right, the agricultural revolution, the dawn of civilization, as we're often told.
Yeah. I remember learning about it as just a big step forward, settled communities, surplus food, the birth of cities, the good stuff.
We're taught it was the start of everything great.
Exactly. So what's the alternative take? What did I miss?
Well, some evidence suggests that early farmers, those who made that transition, they might have actually worked harder than their hunter-gatherer ancestors. And to top it off, they probably had a much less diverse diet too. Wait, seriously? So it wasn't all sunshine and roses? I always imagined, like, this idyllic farm life.
Harari encourages us to dig a little deeper, because for all the seeming benefits, there were also downsides.
Okay, so like what? What were the downsides?
Well, think about it. The increased workload, for one.
Right. I guess it would be a lot more work than just, gathering what nature provided.
Exactly. And then there's the dependence on just a few types of crops.
Which makes you vulnerable if something happens to those crops.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Disease, famine. These were very real threats. And not to mention, you saw the rise of social hierarchies.
Because resources became more concentrated. Those who controlled the food and land had more power.
Precisely. It wasn't necessarily a utopia.
So it's way more complicated than just saying, hey, agriculture, it was good or it was bad. There were both benefits and drawbacks.
Exactly. It's a classic example of how progress, well, it's not always a straight line upward. It's messy.
It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of thing.
And the agricultural revolution really set off this chain reaction, one that would change the trajectory of our species forever.
Even if it wasn't always for the better.
Right. But what's interesting is this theme that we see emerging, this kind of inevitable, it seems, progression
Towards what?
towards unification.
Unification.
Harari argues that sapiens, we have this inherent drive, this urge to come together to form larger, more interconnected systems.
Okay, so give me an example. What do you mean by unification in this context?
Well, think about empires.
Empires, right. They were all about expanding their reach, bringing more people under their control.
Exactly. Or even something like the concept of money.
Oh, interesting. Money as a unifying force. Tell me more.
Well, money, as Harari explains it, it evolved from these like simple barter systems to the complex financial systems we have today.
It's true. Money is everywhere. We all use it, rely on it. But when you really think about it, it's kind of a strange thing.
It is. Because in essence, money is just a system of mutual trust. We've all collectively agreed to believe in its value, even though it doesn't have any inherent worth.
It's like a shared illusion,
Yeah.
a story we all tell ourselves.
Exactly. But it's a powerful story. And because it's so versatile, money can transcend cultural and societal barriers.
It's a common language in a way.
Yes. And that contributes to this process of, you guessed it, unification. Although, of course, like anything powerful, money has its downside.
Oh, absolutely. Greed, inequality, exploitation, the list goes on.
Harari doesn't shy away from those negative consequences. He talks about how the pursuit of wealth has fueled conflict and corruption throughout history.
It's like this double-edged sword. There's potential for great good, but also, well, the capacity for immense harm. And that tension seems to come up again and again in our history.
You're exactly right. And it leads us to another very powerful, very unifying force, religion.
Religion. All right, let's talk about that.
Okay.
What role does religion play in this whole grand narrative of human unification, according to Harari?
Well, he suggests that religion, particularly the monotheistic religions like Christianity and Islam, they've been a major driving force for unification.
Because they have this idea of one God, one truth.
Exactly. These religions often believe they possess universal truths, and they actively seek to convert others to their belief systems.
So they're trying to create a unified world, a world united under their specific set of beliefs.
Precisely. And that can be a good thing. It can foster peace, cooperation, a sense of shared humanity. But it can also lead to conflict.
When those beliefs clash with others.
Exactly. We see this all throughout history. This tension between our longing for unity, for oneness, and the reality of our differences, our very human tendency to divide ourselves.
It's like this constant push and pull. And it seems like this tension is something Harari explores even deeper as he dives into the scientific revolution.
He does.
Yeah, I'm really curious to hear his take on this. How does the scientific revolution fit into this whole idea of unification?
Well, Harari makes this really interesting argument. He says that despite the scientific revolution's emphasis on reason, on observation, on those objective truths.
Right, the scientific method.
Exactly. He argues that it also contributed to the unification of humankind.
Now that's surprising. How so? How did a movement focused on objectivity and, well, science lead to more unity?
It's fascinating when you think about it. For one thing, science created a universal language.
You mean like equations, formulas?
Not just that, it's a way for thinkers from all over the world, no matter their language or background, to communicate, to share ideas, and to collaborate.
That's such a good point. Scientists from completely different cultures can understand each other's work, build upon each other's discoveries, all thanks to this shared language of science.
Exactly. And what's even more significant is this. Unlike some earlier traditions of knowledge, modern science, it has a global scope.
It's not limited to one specific region or culture's way of seeing things.
Right. Modern science aims to understand the entire universe, from the smallest particles to the largest galaxies. It's about uncovering those universal truths that apply to everyone, everywhere.
So in a way, science, with its search for objective truth, it kind of accidentally brought people together through this shared pursuit of knowledge.
You could say that, however.
However, There's always a however.
It's important to acknowledge the other side of this. The scientific revolution happened alongside European colonialism.
Ah, right.
Right.
Not exactly a shining moment for unity and understanding between different cultures.
Exactly. And it's a reminder that progress, even with the best of intentions, it can have unintended consequences.
It's like we're capable of amazing things, of pushing the boundaries of knowledge, of connecting with each other across cultures.
But we also have this capacity for destruction, for exploitation.
It seems like this tension, this struggle between our desire for unity and the realities of power dynamics, it's a recurring theme throughout history, isn't it?
You hit the nail on the head. And it's something that continues to shape our world today. And this tension, this complexity, it's right there at the heart of the scientific revolution itself.
What do you...
Well, Harari argues that one of the most significant things to come out of this era, it wasn't a specific discovery, it wasn't a fancy invention, it was something else entirely.
Okay, you've got my attention. What was it then?
It was the realization that we don't know very much at all.
We don't know a lot. You mean like there's still so much
Right.
out there to discover?
Exactly. It's like the more we learn, the more we realize how much we don't know. And that's a key characteristic of modern science.
So admitting our ignorance is actually a good thing.
It's essential. It allows us to stay curious, to challenge those old assumptions, and to continuously refine our understanding of the universe. Like, think about Isaac Newton. His laws of motion, they were groundbreaking. But science didn't stop there.
Right. We kept exploring, kept questioning.
And that's how we got Einstein's theories of relativity and quantum mechanics. It's like those early explorers setting sail across the ocean, not knowing what they'd find.
They were venturing into the unknown. That sense of exploration, it's what drives scientific progress, but it also brings up something else Harari talks about.
The potential downsides of all this knowledge.
Yeah. He uses the example of the Manhattan Project, the atomic bomb.
A stark reminder that scientific progress doesn't happen in a vacuum. It can be used for good and for, well, not so good things.
It's a heavy thought, but an important one to consider. This potential for both positive and negative applications, it's something we see repeatedly in our history. It seems like whenever we make a new discovery, develop a new technology, we have to grapple with those ethical questions too.
It all comes back to that responsibility that comes with knowledge, right? And it makes you wonder, with all this progress, with everything we've learned and achieved, has it actually made us happier?
That is the big question, isn't it? I mean, it seems like with all the advancements we've made in medicine and technology, we've got to be happier than our ancestors, right? Who wouldn't want to live in a world with modern medicine and smartphones and all that?
It seems logical, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's a much more complex issue than you might think.
So what's the answer? Is there even one?
Harari doesn't pretend to have all the answers, but he does present some compelling perspectives. He talks about how our modern, technology-driven lives, for all their conveniences, can also contribute to a sense of alienation, anxiety, boredom even.
Boredom. With all the entertainment and distractions at our fingertips. I'm surprised to hear that.
It seems counterintuitive, but think about it. We're constantly bombarded with information, with stimulation. There's this pressure to always be doing, achieving, consuming, and all that can actually make it harder to be present, to appreciate the simple things.
It's like we're always chasing the next thing, the next dopamine hit. We forget how to just be.
Exactly. And Harari argues that this constant stimulation, this detachment from those more traditional ways of life, those things that gave people a sense of community, a sense of connection to nature, those things might actually be essential for our well-being.
So we've traded one set of problems for another. We might not have to worry about, hunting and gathering our food every day.
But we have a whole new set of challenges to deal with.
And challenges to our happiness.
Exactly. And this is what he calls the happiness conundrum. Have we, in all of our striving for progress and comfort, actually sacrificed some of those fundamental things that make us truly happy?
It's a question that really makes you stop and think. We've become so adept at manipulating the external world. We've built skyscrapers and airplanes and sent rockets into space. But have we neglected our inner world?
That's what Harari wants us to consider. And it's not just about what we've built or achieved, but also about our very expectations of happiness.
I think you're really onto something there. We're constantly bombarded with images of, perfect lives, perfect bodies, material wealth, incredible adventures. It's hard not to internalize that and feel like you're not measuring up.
And Harari specifically talks about the impact of marketing on our self-perception. that constant barrage of ads promising us happiness if we just buy this product or achieve that goal, it can create this sense of inadequacy, of never being good enough.
It's like we're being sold a fantasy. And then we feel bad when our lives don't match up to this impossible standard.
It's a recipe for dissatisfaction. So where do we go from here? Well, Harari suggests that true happiness, it might come from cultivating a deeper understanding of ourselves, of our own minds.
Okay, that makes sense, but how do we actually do that in a world that's so focused on the external?
It's not easy. Our brains are wired to want more, to strive, to compare ourselves to others. It's part of what's gotten us this far. But Harari draws on insights from these ancient traditions, these wisdom traditions, to show us another way.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, he talks a lot about meditation. For centuries, people have been using meditation to find peace, to cultivate self-awareness.
Meditation. So we're not talking about emptying our minds completely.
No, it's not about stopping our thoughts altogether. It's more about changing our relationship to them.
So instead of being controlled by our thoughts, we learn to observe them, to create some space between ourselves and that constant mental chatter.
Exactly. It's about finding stillness amidst the chaos. And this skill, this ability to be present with our own minds, I think it becomes even more crucial as we move into a future where technology is becoming more and more integrated with, well, us.
You're right. If we're talking about like manipulating our genes, enhancing our brains, maybe even merging with artificial intelligence.
These aren't just technological questions anymore. They're philosophical questions, ethical questions.
Big questions. If we have the ability to engineer our desires, our emotions, maybe even our consciousness, what does that mean for happiness, for fulfillment, what it means to be human?
Those are the questions we need to be asking ourselves, because the future, it's coming whether we're ready or not.
It's almost like we're on the verge of changing what it means to be human. I have to admit, it's a little unnerving,
Yeah.
We're talking about shaping the future of our entire species. No big deal, right?
That's exactly why Harari spends so much time digging into our past, to understand how we got to this point.
Right, because if we can learn from our mistakes, maybe we can avoid making them again.
It's not just about avoiding mistakes, although that's certainly part of it. It's about recognizing those patterns in our history, those tendencies that have led us to both great achievements and, well, some not so great consequences.
Because those patterns, they might repeat themselves as we move into the future. It makes you think about everything we've been discussing. Progress, technology, and this big question of happiness. Will any of it matter if we end up creating a future where we're miserable?
Now you're getting to the heart of it. It's easy to get caught up in all the excitement about technology, about progress. But we have to remember that true happiness, it doesn't just magically appear when you reach a certain level of technological advancement.
It's not like happiness is just a setting on a smartphone. Oh, I've achieved level 5 of technological progress. Now I'm automatically happy. It doesn't work that way, does it?
Not quite. In fact, Harari suggests that by focusing so much on what's next, on what we still need to achieve or acquire, we might actually be missing out on the happiness that's available to us right now.
There's that saying, happiness is not a destination, it's a way of life. But putting that into practice, well, that's easier said than done, especially when we're constantly bombarded with messages telling us we need more to be happy.
It's that constant pressure to consume, to achieve, to compare ourselves to others. It's hard to escape.
So how do we break free from that cycle?
Yeah.
How do we reconcile our very human desire for more with the understanding that true happiness might lie in appreciating what we already have?
It's a challenge, for sure, but Harari points to some ancient wisdom that might help. He talks about the importance of understanding our own minds.
Okay, so like therapy, or maybe mindfulness.
Those are definitely on the right track. He specifically mentions meditation, which has been helping people for centuries to find a sense of peace and clarity.
Meditation. Isn't that all about, emptying your mind and sitting very still?
It's a common misconception. It's not about emptying your mind completely. It's more about becoming aware of your thoughts, your feelings, without getting swept away by them.
Oh, I see. So instead of being controlled by that constant chatter in our heads, we learn to observe it. We create some distance, some space.
Exactly. It's about finding that place of stillness, that inner peace, even amidst all the chaos of life. And that skill, that inner strength, it's going to be more important than ever as we move into this increasingly complex future, especially with all this talk about artificial intelligence and the potential for technology to reshape our very minds.
It's like we need to upgrade our own operating systems to keep up with the technology we're creating. And honestly, that's a pretty daunting thought.
It is. But it's also incredibly exciting. We're standing at the precipice of a whole new era, one where we have the potential to understand ourselves and the universe in ways we never thought possible.
It's a lot to take in. But I think you've summed it up perfectly. It's daunting, yes, but it's also filled with possibility. And ultimately, the future is not something that's just going to happen to us. We have a choice. We can choose to be passive passengers along for the ride, or we can choose to be active participants in shaping the future.
We can choose to be conscious creators.
Exactly. We can ask ourselves those big questions about progress, about technology, about happiness, about what it means to be human, and we can use those answers to guide our choices, both individually and as a species. Well, folks, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive into Sapiens.
It's been quite a journey.
It really has. From the cognitive revolution to the future of Homo sapiens, we've covered a lot of ground, and we hope you found it as thought-provoking as we have. If you're looking for a book that will challenge your assumptions and leave you with more questions than answers, Sapiens is definitely worth checking out.
It's a book that stays with you.
It really does. And to our amazing listeners, thank you for joining us on this wild ride through history and into the future. We'll keep exploring these big ideas, these mind-blowing concepts, and we hope you'll keep listening. Remember, the future is not set in stone. It's a story that's still being written, and every single one of us has a role to play in shaping the next chapter. Until next time, keep those minds open, keep asking those big questions, and keep searching for those moments of wonder and awe in this incredible journey we call life.